Hello and welcome back to another episode of Winemaking 101, the series where I try and answer the fundamental, the basic winemaking questions in under 2 minutes. And today's question follows on from yesterday's question about yeast, and that is, do I need to hydrate my yeast before I make it? And what are the benefits of hydrating yeast? So let's put 2 minutes on the timer and delve into that question. Some yeasts you will buy for your home winemaking, say just to sprinkle on top of your must. Other wines you buy will say to activate them first in some warm water and sugar solution. But why? And what is the difference between adding it directly to your fermentation buckets or adding it to a warm sugar solution first? There are several reasons why manufacturers of yeast strains say to do this. The first reason why you should make a yeast starter is to check the validity of the yeast. Is it still active? Is it still good? You don't want to be adding old yeast that does not work to your wine. Otherwise you'll be waiting 3, 4, 5 days for the yeast to work, and then you're going to find nothing's happening. Waste of time. You might then lose your initial ingredients. So it is advisable to make up the starter solution first. You can monitor it for a quarter of an hour and see that it's foaming and turning into an active yeast culture. I normally use a quarter of a pint of warm water with a tablespoon of sugar added to it, and then pour in a teaspoon of yeast. This way the yeast has the sugar to start multiplying, and the warm liquid will enhance that. After your quarter of an hour, you would have seen the froth, the bubbles forming. You know that yeast is good. Another reason you should make up this yeast starter is to give the yeast the maximum chance of doing its job, of turning the sugar in your vegetables and fruit and the sugar you've added to your bucket, the best chance of eating all of that sugar and turning it into alcohol. The yeast multiply really quickly when you first add it to your must, to your wine mix. And if you can add a really active initial culture of yeast to the bucket, it's going to multiply even faster. So it just gives the yeast the best chance and that best head start of getting to work sooner. So do you need to make up a yeast starter and hydrate your yeast before adding it? There are reasons why you would want to, as I've just explained, but it's not essential. Like so many things in winemaking, there are best practices and then there are ways you can do it, and generally the best practices are only marginally ahead of the way you can do it. So aim for the best practices, make up the yeast starter, get into the good habits of doing these things. The best practices act as a buffer against error. You don't want to be adding a yeast that doesn't work. So making the yeast starter puts you in a best start where you know the yeast works. It's the best practice, but it's not essential to do so. Well, I think 2 minutes have been and gone. As for this yeast starter, I'm a bit dubious about it because it's not frothing yet, it's not bubbling, it's not looking as lively as I want. And I can put that down to the best before date on this yeast being 2 years ago. It's an old pot I found and I just wanted to check and make sure it is good. I'll put this in a warm place and leave it for another 20 minutes or so and see what happens. But luckily I didn't add this to a wine and wait 3 days for it to work. If you want to know a bit more about yeast strains, check out this video down by here, and please subscribe to the video down by here, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Have a good day now.